A years-long effort to revitalize one of the oldest parts of the valley is now underway. We have introduced you to the 100 plan on the historic west side of Las Vegas before, and tonight, Fox 5's Mike Allen joins us now live with some of the big things that are happening. Mike?
Yeah, well, the historic west side has quite a big hill to climb, Kim, and it does have a big advocate in City Councilman Cedric Creer. I talked to him earlier today at the historic west side school behind me about how his signature plan is coming along.
Well, look, the 100 plan is a community-driven initiative.
A lifelong passion for a Las Vegas City Councilman.
Historic urban neighborhood design, redevelopment, and this is important, plan in action.
Cedric Creer is one of the voices behind revitalizing the historic west side of Las Vegas, taking some of the best aspects of the old times on the west side and trying to bring them to the present. Part of that is bringing back jobs.
The community experiences 15% unemployment. So when I came in office, I made a vow that we're going to get people ready, trained, prepared to go to work.
That's a little tougher to do here on the west side than other parts of the valley, in today's digital landscape especially, since more than a quarter of people living there don't have broadband internet connection at home.
You have to be able to bring your skill level up to the virtual world of today.
That issue is partially addressed at the historic west side school with career-based help for kids and adults like Abdul Shabazz.
This is the virtual world, and if you don't have virtual skills, you're totally left out in the cold.
The west side does have a ways to go, with the area lagging behind the rest of Las Vegas in household income, educational attainment, home ownership, and car ownership. But Creer says the area is making steps in the right direction.
It's definitely working. People know about the 100 plan in action. They are believing in 100 plan in action. They're seeing all the work that's going into the 100 plan in action, and they're ready to do it themselves.
Another part of the 100 plan calls for an entertainment district on Jackson Street, which is right now mostly empty lots, so pretty ambitious. Reporting live at the historic West Side School in Las Vegas, Mike Allen, Fox 5 News, local Las Vegas.
All right, thank you, Mike. And we have got a link to the full 100 plan on the web version of this story on fox5vegas.com.